It's incredibly rare that filmmakers nail a scene on the first take, and as the likes of Stanley Kubrick and David Fincher have demonstrated, perfectionist directors can spend an entire day just getting a single movie moment right. But every so often, an outtake is so utterly brilliant enough to warrant its inclusion in the end result. And in the cases of these 10 films, each left a well-suited moment on the cutting room floor, relegated to either a credits montage or a home video B-movie reel that audiences could have missed entirely. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is Whatculture.com, and these are 10 movie outtakes that should have stayed in. Number 10, he isn't going to be in Rush Hour 3, Rush Hour 2. Now there's a fair argument to be made that the end credits gag reel in the Rush Hour movies are actually the funniest part, and that's certainly the case with the second movie. But among the many memorable outtakes that played during Rush Hour 2's credits, there's one so brilliantly conceived it clearly deserved to stay in the film proper. After the villainous Ricky Tan is kicked out of a window to his death, Carter stares at the mess on the ground and quips, "Damn, he ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3, before the pair both laugh hysterically. It's a good deal funnier than the fairly bland quip used in the theatrical equivalent of the scene, which is, "Damn, good kick, Lee." While the outtake version obviously breaks the fourth wall down completely, is there really any fan of this series holding these movies to a standard of gritty realism? This would have caught just about everybody off guard had it actually been used in Rush Hour 2's climax, but at least it was smartly preserved for posterity in the credits gag reel. Number 9, Jameson drops an F-bomb, Spider-Man 3. It sure is great to see J.K. Simmons back in the role of J. Jonah Jameson in the MCU because he was easily one of the highlights of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, even in the slightly wonky Spider-Man 3. This is evidenced by not only the Jameson material that made it into the movie itself, but the bloopers as well. In particular, there's one brief but brilliant gag where the Daily Bugle employee Ted Hoffman incurs Jameson's famous fiery wrath. Hoffman explains to his boss that he ran a campaign against his employer's wishes, and just as Jameson angrily confronts him, Hoffman grabs Jameson's apparently precious wind chimes, which he calls the Chimes of Serenity, and holds them nervously between himself and Jameson. After a beat, Hoffman realizes that he's broken the chimes, to which an angry Jameson shouts, "He broke my chimes." While you can't argue that profanity really doesn't fit in with the heightened, goofy tone of the Raimi Spider-Man movies, Jameson probably earned himself a single F-bomb by the third movie, right? In a film that is intensely silly even for Raimi standards, a little profanity might have balanced the tone a little better. Plus, Jameson's delivery is so perfect that it would have resulted in one of the movie's most brilliant and memorable moments. Number 8, Kevin Hart trolls The Rock, Central Intelligence. It goes without saying that the reason 2016's buddy action Central Intelligence is any good at all is the relentlessly charming chemistry between leads Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart, and understandably, a lot of the improvised on-set banter inevitably had to hit the cutting room floor. But this alternate take of a scene that actually did make it into the final cut of the film absolutely should have been one that the director should have gone with. In the movie version, Calvin is explaining to Bob the benefits of using an alias or stage name, telling him, "You think Mr. T and Sting were born with those names? How do you think I got the name Golden Jet at high school?" It's a fairly standard, inoffensive gag, right? Except in the film's end credits gag reel, there's a far funnier take on the scene where Hart smashes the fourth wall to pieces. Hart tells Johnson, "You think Mr. T and Sting and The Rock, you think those guys are real? That's a bunch of dumbass nicknames by a bunch of dumbass people," after which Johnson cracks up laughing. With some editing magic to cover Johnson's laughter, this could have been a brilliant wink-wink gag. And like the Rush Hour 3 blooper, the film is inherently daft enough to get away with such a blatantly meta joke. Number 7, Craig Robinson's WTF one-liner, "This is the end." This is the End is a comedy that benefited enormously from the improvisational talents of its huge ensemble cast, as demonstrated by this hysterical gag reel included on the film's home video release. There are so many hilarious moments which probably should have made it into the final cut, including Emma Watson showing off her bad movie knowledge. But it's the concluding WTF one-liner from Craig Robinson that truly takes the cake. After the gang of A-listers seal up James Franco's luxurious abode, the camera slickly pans around the team before Robinson quips, "This place is sealed up tighter than a fat boy's pussy." Cue Seth Rogen desperately trying not to laugh for a solid 2 seconds before busting his gut, which would have just barely given the editorial team enough room to slot the gag into the movie. The joke doesn't really make much tangible sense, but that only makes it that much funnier. Number 6, John Cena's insane ad-libbing, Trainwreck. It wasn't too many years ago that John Cena's attempt to break into Hollywood seemed mostly doomed, yet his small but memorable role in Amy Schumer's 2015 rom-com Trainwreck proved all the doubters wrong. Here Cena plays Steven, the casual boyfriend of Schumer's protagonist Amy, and spends most of the movie setting up the meathead stereotype that he invites from just a single cursory glance. As confirmed by a featurette on Cena's role, he shot far more material than made it into the movie, thanks to the director Judd Apatow's penchant for allowing his cast to improv to their heart's content. The famous scene where Steven and Amy are talking in the cinema and Steven gets into an argument with a couple nearby was trimmed down from a much larger exchange, where Steven gets not so casually racist before defensively claiming that he bought Public Enemy's Fight the Power single and watches Spike Lee movies. The whole exchange is hilariously obnoxious, enough so that it probably should have made the cut, even if at 125 minutes in length, Trainwreck was already verging on overlong. Number 5. Rhodey shades Thor a lot. Avengers Endgame. Now, Avengers Endgame clocks in at a hefty 181 minutes, so there's a fair argument to be made that it needed to actually lose material rather than gain any more. There's an hysterical quick back and forth between War Machine and Bro Thor that was sadly cut from the movie's second act. You'll likely remember the beat where Thor asks Tony Stark, "What do you think is coursing through my veins?" to which Rhodey interrupts with "Cheese whiz." It's a funny line, but Cheadle actually improvised a number of superior additional retorts, such as Cocoa Puffs, Nachos, Funyuns, and best of all, embarrassment. Clearly, it wouldn't have taken much work to edit these quips into a montage in the movie, though perhaps that would have been a little too fourth-wall breaking for the biggest movie of all time. Number 4. Philip Seymour Hoffman's Mattress Man commercial, Punch Drunk Love. Paul Thomas Anderson's brilliant black comedy boasts one of the late Philip Seymour Hoffman's most distinctive and memorable performances, playing hot-tempered mattress store owner Dean Trumbull, aka Mattress Man. And for nothing more than a laugh, Anderson and Hoffman decided to shoot a fake commercial for his store that was never intended to be included as part of the movie, though mercifully it made it onto the home video release. The outrageously low-budget commercial sees him playing a guitar while promoting his store, before leaping onto a stack of mattresses, which then catapults him onto the concrete floor below with a brutal thud. Cue 30 awkward seconds of his employees rushing over to check on him, and then him shuffling away with his pride severely dented. The whole sequence is in fact a parody of the infamous Furniture Guy commercial, and it's hysterical enough that it clearly warranted inclusion in the movie proper. Considering that Hoffman did the stunt himself at considerable risk, it would have been worth stopping the movie in its tracks for a whole minute just to let that commercial play out. Number 3. Weasel roasts Deadpool's face. Deadpool. One of the best gags in the first Deadpool is Weasel's relentlessly insensitive descriptions of what Wade's scarred face looks like post-transformation. The zingers included in the movie are pretty great, like an avocado had sex with an older, more disgusting avocado, and like Freddy Krueger face a topographical map of Utah. But naturally, TJ Miller reeled off literally dozens more during the shoot. Some of these made it onto a Deadpool blooper reel, and you'll find such gems as "You look like a house fire was in another house fire," and "You look like the inside of other people's assholes." If there's any movie where you could literally pump the dramatic brakes and just let this sidekick insult the hero for 2 solid minutes straight, it'd surely be Deadpool, but regrettably, it wasn't to be. Number 2. Thor fumbles Mjolnir. The Avengers. Joss Whedon's The Avengers effectively set the style and tone for all future MCU epics, with its expert balance of quips, drama, and action, but Whedon could have earned himself another easy laugh if he opted to include this awesome outtake. While shooting the memorable slow-motion shot where Thor summons his trusty hammer Mjolnir, while Captain America is busy battling, Hemsworth repeatedly fumbled the hammer in one brilliantly slapstick-infused goof, eventually letting the hammer fall to the floor while an oblivious Evans continues on to act out the scene. Though some might argue that this would have undermined the character of Thor a little too much, remember just how much of an idiot the Asgardian was back in this movie. Also, including this gag would have further underlined just how aloof Steve Rogers can be. That Thor couldn't even get his iconic summon right surely would have resulted in an unforgettable moment of all-timer MCU silliness. And number 1, Megan Fox's extended body check. This is 40. Between Trainwreck and This is 40, Judd Apatow clearly has a knack for wringing winning performances out of unexpected actors, and in the latter case, he directed Megan Fox to by far the most entertaining performance of her career as Debbie's sexy employee Desi. Those who've seen the movie likely won't forget the scene at Debbie's boutique where she strips down to her bra and the considerably older Debbie expresses fascination with her tight, pert frame, even being invited by her to touch her breasts for a brief moment. It's a fun fun gag which benefits from both Fox's sex appeal and some cute riffing between herself and Leslie Mann. Though the gag reel reveals that this actually went on a little longer, with Mann hilariously declaring of Fox's assets, "I would put floodlights on them." Granted, This Is 40 is a 133-minute movie already, but getting another great laugh out loud one-liner in this mix is surely worth another 10 seconds of screen time, right?